concern with national rail services across the country, what can be done to ensure commuters can still rely on public transport and Kingston can still maintain links with London?
I think we've seen recently, actually just a few days ago now, that the East Coast Railway line was re-privatised. Now, it was brought back under public control because the private owners couldn't manage the service. And in that time, East Coast Railway Lines paid £1 billion back into the Exchequer, helping us pay down the debt. The trains were on time, a lot better than most private companies have been, and the fares were frozen. That was a really successful model, and incredibly, that operator that had been successful on the East Coast line wasn't even allowed to bid. I think they should have just been left to run it in public hands, but they weren't even allowed to bid on that contract, so now it's back in private hands. But as from in the next Parliament, Labour is saying we're going to take public control back over the railways. And so as each private contract comes up, there'll be a very good public sector bid for each of those lines, and we'll be taking more and more of the national railways back into public ownership. And then any kind of profits or surplus that's made will be put straight back into reinvestment, back into the train service, rather than paying off to private shareholders. We'll be investing back in the railways, and also if there's any surplus on top of that, that we pay back into the Exchequer to do things like fund jobs. But I think we do need to take control of our national infrastructure when it comes to transport.
Transport's a massive concern locally. You mentioned trains, but there's also roads as well. But just dealing with trains, the service offered by South West Trains is quite rightly criticised by commuters repeatedly because there are so many issues with it. They're too long to list at the moment. But in 2019, their franchise is up for renewal, and there'll be a lot of focus on that. But I think that there are things that we can do to improve transport in Kingston, and one of them is making sure that we're well placed to get as many Crossrail stops as possible, and that's why I'm campaigning for Crossrail to stop at as many stations in Kingston as possible, because what that will do is reduce journey times into London. It will increase the number of services and thereby reducing overcrowding, and there'll be a massive benefit to people in Kingston, both people wanting to travel to and from London for work, but also people that want to come here to do business. So while we want to encourage people to use trains and to use cycling and to walk to work if they can, you can't get away from the reality that a number of people use cars and will continue to use cars. And what I want to do is to bring pressure on TfL to deal with a number of traffic hotspots in Kingston, Surbiton, such as the toll of Broadway, such as the A243, such as the New Malden Fountain Roundabout area, which have not been addressed properly for years, and that requires pressure and action, and that's what I'm trying to do by inviting the transport ministers to come and see what the problem is, inviting TfL to come see what the problem is and to actually take some positive action.
I think that the main parties, so the Conservatives and the Lib Dems and Labour, are very out of touch with the voting base on this question. So a YouGov poll recently showed that something like 65% of the British public support renationalisation of British Rail, the rail services in general. And that's the same across the board, so even 52% I think of Conservative voters believe that the public transport system should be run for people and not for profit. And that's the position that we take. So we stand with that kind of 65% of people in the country who believe that public transportation should be kind of nationalised for the rail services, but also the bus services and the ferry services, so that we can have an integrated public transport system that's low pollution and low impact public transportation system. I think, one of the most important things that we need to consider in maintaining links between Kingston and London is the rail fares. So rail fares are continually increasing, and one of the stories about privatisation is that when we privatise the rail companies, there will be more money available to invest in infrastructure. There will be more money available to invest in maintenance, and what we've actually seen is the opposite of that happening. So investment in maintenance and infrastructure has gone down, and fares have continued to rise. I think that at the very least what we should be doing is capping rail fares which is something that the government, the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives have voted against in the last Parliament. So I think that it's important that in order to maintain those links that we firstly cap rail fares, and secondly that we check and we have a look at where this money is going that the rail companies are making.
We need to renationalise our rails now. They are an important public service, we depend on them especially in areas like this, and yet they're being used to create profit for companies and a few small people. Because they're a public service, they should be run by the public, for the public. And when you have public's interests in mind, not only is it going to be cheaper, but any profits that we do make, any money on top of that, is going to go back into making those services better. So renationalisation is absolutely the answer, probably to pretty much all the problems we're facing at the moment with the railways.
Changes, yeah.
Yeah, we just need to change the way that it's working.